Around 7 million used cars are bought in the UK each year, and there's some great bargains to be had, but also some serious pitfalls to avoid. According to vehicle history check experts HPI, 1 in every 3 used cars it checks has a hidden history, and 1 in 20 has a mileage discrepancy, and that could mean that it's been clocked. And so in this video, I'm going to explain how to protect yourself against these risks and buy your perfect used car at the right price.
To do this, we will look at how to spot signs of accident damage, check if the car's been properly maintained, vouch its mileage and history, take it for a test drive and negotiate the best price.
But before we get into any of that, you first need to decide what type of car it is you need. After all, there's no point looking at normal hatchbacks if they're not going to be big enough for your family. Once you've decided on the type of car, you then need to narrow it down to a specific model. Great source of information are the used car buying guides on autoexpress.co.uk, as they also give you information about known faults for that particular car.
Once you've done your research, you can find a vast array of cars for sale online, and this will give you a good idea of what price you can expect to pay. Dealers usually charge a bit more, but you do have some legal consumer protection if things go wrong, whereas you don't when buying privately. Though, if you do your background checks properly, there are some bargains to be had.
Okay then, so you found a car you like, and now you need to check the documents. The most important one is this, the registration certificate, also known as the V5C. Now, as it says on here, this document is not proof of ownership. It shows who is responsible for registering and taxing the vehicle. But you don't want to buy a car without having your hands on this. There's a couple of things you need to check in it. First is the chassis number. So you match the chassis number there to the one on the car, and yes, that agrees, which is a good start. Also check some other things such as the colour. Make sure the colour matches up and that the engine under the bonnet is as it says here. What you can also do is check the address. Now you need to know this if you're buying privately, because you want to be at the address that is on this form, because if you're not and you have a history check done, it won't come with a guarantee. And do not be tempted to meet the seller at a convenient location such as a supermarket car park, because if there's a problem with the car after you've bought it, you want to know where you're going to go and complain.
If you're at a dealership, they will probably have had a history check done on the car already for their own peace of mind. After all, of all the cars HPI check each day, 649 are shown to be an insurance write-off, 30 are stolen, and 1 in 4 have outstanding finance.
Next, you want to check the car's mileage. Now, a good way to do this is to take the very latest MOT certificate, and if you look here, you'll see that it's got the car's mileage at the previous MOT test, and you can vouch that back to what it says on the odometer to make sure it all adds up. You can even double check those numbers there to the old certificates if they're present, and if the car's got any invoicing for servicing, the mileage by the mechanic will be noted down on the invoice, and you can check all that as well. And if you're having a vehicle history check done, that should report back any mileage discrepancies as well. You can also do some visual checks yourself. For instance, if the car's steering wheel is very shiny, it's a sign that the car has done lots of miles. Other things you can look out for are shiny gear knobs. You should also check the pedal rubbers, make sure they're not worn. Another place to check are the seats. In particular, the side bolsters, especially the one on the outside of the car, from people getting in and out of it, rubbing against the fabric and causing it to fray. Now, if you've got all these signs of wear, but the odometer is saying that the car has done a few miles, there's a good chance that it may have been clocked, which means its mileage has been wound back.
While you're inside the car, it's worthwhile checking all the electrics. When you turn the car on, the warning lights should all illuminate to show they are working and then switch off. You should then try all the switches, the electric windows, the stereo, the heater fan, all the lights, and the wipers.
Then you want to check for known faults for the particular car you're looking at. For instance, these C4 Picassos are known to have bits of interior trim coming loose. So have a good look around the cabin, make sure no bits have dropped off. In particular, check the parcel shelf because they can damage easily. Also, check these seats because they're really cool the way they move, but you want to make sure the operation is all fine and dandy. And yes, this is good. This particular model has the automatic gearbox, and I know that it had a software update, and you want to check that that's been done by a dealer. So just look through the service log and it should be noted down in there.
This is also a good time to see if the car has been properly maintained. Just because it says full service history in the advert doesn't mean it's necessarily true. Also, find out when the next service is due and what it involves. If it's a major one, such as a cam belt change, you could be facing a large bill soon.
At some point, you're going to have to get your hands dirty to do some visual checks underneath the bonnet. You want to look at the coolant level, you also want to look at the level of the screen wash and the level of the brake fluid, because you want to make sure that they're fully topped up. Now, if they're low, it could suggest that this car has been neglected. Of course, the big one to check is the engine oil. So take the dipstick out, wipe it, pop it back in, all the way, and then check the level. Because if the engine's been run without oil or low oil, you could have done some serious damage to it. Now this one, it's perfect. It's got the right amount of oil in, and you actually don't want it overfilled, because if it's been overfilled, there's a sign maybe that someone may have, been constantly topping up the engine because it's got a leak somewhere. So if you see it's overfilled, have a look round for leaks, because there could well be some. Now another thing to look with the oil is if you check this out, you'll see it's a nice translucent kind of brown colour, and that suggests it's quite fresh. If the oil is black, it means it's old. Now that doesn't apply on a diesel car because it goes black quite quickly. Another thing to look out for is if the oil is kind of a bit more like a mayonnaise-y kind of globular residue, and you find some of that in the coolant tank as well, it suggests there could be a major problem with the engine. So with a car like that, you'd probably want to walk away from it.
Looking for signs of accident damage is also key when buying a used car, as certain repairs may have been done outside of insurance, so there will be no record of it. Check the panel gaps with your fingers to make sure they are even. If not, the car could have had a shunt. Also, look for overspray inside the doors and under the seals, inside the wheel arches, in the fuel filler cap and inside the boot. Plus, keep an eye out for mismatched paint colours and any dimpling or blemishes in the finish, as all of these could suggest some sort of bodywork repair. If you're not confident doing any of these checks yourself, you can always pay to have a vehicle inspection done by a mechanic.
One of the easiest things to check is the condition of the tyres. Now, you want to make sure they're in good nick, otherwise you're going to have to buy some new ones, and they ain't cheap. So you want to look at the tread depth, and you need a minimum of 1.6 millimetres to be legal, and handily, most tyres have these little markers to say where 1.6 millimetres is. And this tyre has lots of tread left on it, which is good. You also want to look out for things like cuts or grazes around the outside of the tyre, and those can cause an MOT failure. So these tyres are in good condition. Also, you want to look at the wear over the whole tyre to make sure it's not uneven. Now, uneven tyre wear can signify something simple, just like the tyres have been over or underinflated. However, it could actually mean something more sinister, such as a problem with the steering.
Also, inspect the condition of the wheels themselves. Badly curved rims suggest the owner doesn't take great care of their car. If there are locking wheel nuts, make sure the key's with the car. Check that the jack and towing eye are there too, and check the condition of the spare wheel, or if the car doesn't have one, the foam and the compressor aren't missing, like they are on this Citroen. Now it's time to check the engine runs okay. It's best if you can start it from cold, as a damaged engine will make all sorts of horrible noises before it warms up. And if everything's okay, it's time for the test drive, though you'll need to make sure you're insured first. If you have fully comprehensive cover on your car, it's possible you're covered third party on other vehicles, but check first. If not, you may be covered under the seller's policy.
Once you know you're covered, you want to pick a route which takes in a variety of roads, such as some dual carriageway, some twisty roads, and obviously driving through town. And if you can, you want to leave the seller behind, because you don't want them constantly yapping in your ear, distracting you while you're trying to think about how the car feels to drive and if it's got any problems.
There are a few key tests which can highlight common problems on a used car, and it's really worth taking time to do them because they are easy to perform.
To check the clutch, if you've got a manual car, just cruise along at 25 miles an hour, then pop it into third, accelerate hard, and if the revs rise but the car doesn't actually increase in speed at all, yes, your clutch could be wearing out. Now this car's an automatic, and what you want to check with an automatic is that when you're stationary and you move the gear selector, it actually chooses the gears quickly. And then when you're driving along, you want shifts to be nice and smooth, and you don't want it constantly changing gear unnecessarily, because that could signify a problem.
If you can, on your test drive, try to find some uneven or badly serviced sections of road, as these will highlight any problems with the suspension.
If you see some potholes or bumps, then specifically drive through them. I'll tell you another good thing as well. Go over some speed humps, and what you want to do is listen out for bangs or clonks from the suspension. This car is absolutely no problem at all. Those kind of noises are a bad sign. So too is grinding from the wheels, rattling from the exhaust, or if you go through a very sharp turn such as round a mini roundabout, if you get a clonking sound from the front in a front wheel drive car, it could mean that the drive shafts are on the way out. Next, you want to find an empty stretch of road because you're going to do an emergency stop. And if the car's got ABS, what you want to do is to floor the brake and the clutch at the same time. And what you want to look out for is that you get this pulsing sensation under the brake pedal, and that's a sign that the ABS is working. And you want to notice if the car brakes in a straight line, because if it pulls to the side, it could signify a problem with the brakes. Also, when you're braking, you want to see if you can feel any kind of vibration in the steering wheel, because if you can, it's a sign that the discs are warped. After you've done your brake test, you want to get to a nice straight stretch of road and hold the wheel very lightly, because you want to see if the car drifts either to the right or to the left. If any kind of veering off is excessive, it could be a sign that your wheels are out of alignment, or worst case scenario, the car's been in an accident and the chassis is slightly bent. If your car's got it, you're going to want to check the air conditioning. So turn it on, then ratchet up the fan to full speed. And you want to make sure that the air coming out the vents is nice and cold. It is on this car, which is a good sign. But if it's not, it could just mean something simple like the system needs regassing, and that's not very expensive to do at all. However, it could mean something more serious, such as the compressor's gone, and that would be quite expensive.
Take at least 20 minutes for your test drive, as this will give you enough time to not only check for faults, but also to see if the way the car drives is right for you.
For instance, for a car like this, you want it to have nice supple suspension, you want the seats to be comfortable, all the controls are nice and easy to use, and it's dead simple to drive in town or just on the motorway. You probably want it to be quiet as well, because you're going to be carrying your family about. Another thing you might want to do when you're on the test drive is to reset the car's trick computer if it's got one, and then you can work out what kind of MPG it does in your hands, so you can see if it's going to be economical enough for you.
If you are choosing between a number of different models, take some notes from each road test, rating the car in certain areas to help you make up your mind which to go for.
So you like the car and you want to buy it, but before you do, you should see how much tax is left on it and when the next MOT is due. In fact, have a look at the MOT and see if it's got any advisory items on it, because those could cause it to fail next time. You can actually use that to help negotiate on the price.
Now comes the bit most people don't like: haggling. First, you need to decide the maximum you are willing to pay for the car and stick to it.
Now, don't discuss any trading just yet, because often the dealer will give you a great price on your old motor only to bump up the price of the car you're trying to buy. Also, don't tell him you're going to be paying by cash at first, because it's easier to negotiate a good deal if the dealer thinks he's going to be able to flog you some finance. Now, if you've done your research, you should know what the value is of the car you're looking at, but I'd always go in with a cheeky offer of about 20% below the asking price, and then steadily negotiate my way up from there. Keep it polite, but don't try to be too matey, because let's face it, you're not here to have fun, you're here to do business. And if you can't get the deal you want, just walk away. It's a buyer's market and there's plenty of other used cars out there.
If you do get the price you like, before paying up, get your own vehicle history check done, even if the seller has done one already. That way, it's you who is guaranteed if something goes wrong.
If you're not buying the car on finance, try to pay the dealer using your credit card, as you'll get a bit of extra protection from your card issuing company. Also, if you're buying privately, pay by bank transfer, because you don't really want to be going around with bags of cash. And then hopefully you'll end up with your perfect used car at the right price.